As a matter of only yesterday and today did the times of the Snake King's appearance above ground seem to him, and his body at such times towered up into the sky to a height of 1¾ leagues. Then the future Buddha took his noonday rest on the banks of the river, in a grove of salt trees in full bloom, and at nightfall, at the time the flowers droop on their stalks, he rose up, like a lion when he bestirs himself, and went towards the Bo-tree, along a road which the gods had decked, and which was 8 usabas wide. The snakes, the fairies, the birds, and other classes of beings did him homage with celestial perfumes, flowers, and other offerings, and celestial choruses poured forth heavenly music, so that the 10,000 worlds were filled with these perfumes, garlands, and shouts of acclaim. Just then there came from the opposite direction a grass-cutter named Scotia, and he was carrying grass. And when he saw the great being, that he was a holy man, he gave him 8 handfuls of grass. The future Buddha took the grass, and ascending to the throne of wisdom, stood on the southern side and faced the north. Instantly the southern half of the world sank, until it seemed to touch the abyssy hell, while the northern half rose to the highest of the heavens. "Methinks," said the future Buddha, "this cannot be the place for the attainment of the supreme wisdom." And walking round the tree with his right side towards it, he came to the western side and faced the east. Then the western half of the world sank, until it seemed to touch the abyssy hell, while the eastern half rose to the highest of the heavens. Wherever, indeed, he stood, the broad earth rose and fell, as though it had been a huge cartwheel lying on its hub, and someone were treading on the rim. "Methinks," said the future Buddha, "this also cannot be the place for the attainment of supreme wisdom." And walking round the tree with his right side towards it, he came to the northern side and faced the south. Then the northern half of the world sank, until it seemed to touch the abyssy hell, while the southern half rose to the highest of the heavens. "Methinks," said the future Buddha, "this also cannot be the place for the attainment of supreme wisdom." And walking round the tree with his right side towards it, he came to the eastern side and faced the west. Now it is on the eastern side of their Bo-trees that all the Buddhas have sat cross-legged, and that side neither trembles nor quakes. Then the great being, saying to himself, "This is the immovable spot on which all the Buddhas have planted themselves. This is the place for destroying passion's net," took hold of his handful of grass by one end, and shook it out there. And straightway the blades of grass formed themselves into a seat 14 cubits long, of such symmetry of shape as not even the most skilful painter or carver could design. Then the future Buddha turned his back to the trunk of the Bo-tree and faced the east, and making the mighty resolution, "Let my skin, and sinews, and bones become dry and welcome, and let all the flesh and blood in my body dry up, but never from the seat will I stir until I have attained the supreme and absolute wisdom." He sat himself down cross-legged in an unconquerable position, from which not even the descent of 100 thunderbolts at once could have dislodged him. At this point the god Mara, exclaiming, "Prince Siddhartha is desirous of passing beyond my control, but I will never allow it," went and announced the news to his army, and sounding the Mara war cry, drew out for battle. Now Mara's army extended in front of him for 12 leagues, and to the right and to the left for 12 leagues, and in the rear as far as to the confines of the world, and it was 9 leagues high. And when it shouted, it made an earthquake like roaring and rumbling over a space of 1,000 leagues. And the god Mara, mounting his elephant, which was 150 leagues high, and had the name girded with mountains, caused 1,000 arms to appear on his body, and with these he grasped a variety of weapons. Also in the remainder of that army no 2 persons carried the same weapon, and diverse also in their appearances and countenances, the host swept on like a flood to overwhelm the great being. Now deities throughout 10,000 worlds were busy singing the praises of the great being. Saka, the king of the gods, was blowing the conch shell Vijayuttara. This conch, they say, was 120 cubits long, and when once it had been filled with winds, it would sound for 4 months before it stopped. The great black snake king sang more than 100 laudatory verses, and Mahara's army gradually drew near to the throne of wisdom. Not one of these gods was able to stand his ground, but each fled straight before him. The black snake king dived into the ground, and coming to the snake abode, Manjerika, which was 500 leagues in extent, he covered his face with both hands and lay down. Saka slung his conch shell Vijayuttara over his back, and took up his position on the rim of the world. Mahabrahma left the white umbrella at the end of the world, and fled to his Brahma abode. Not a single deity was able to stand his ground, and the great being was left sitting alone. Then said Mara to his followers, "My friends, Siddhartha, the son of Suddhodana, is far greater than any other man, and we shall never be able to fight him in front. We will attack him from behind." All the gods had now disappeared, and the great being looked around on 3 sides, and said to himself, "There is no one here." Then, looking to the north, he perceived Mara's army coming on like a flood, and said, "Here is this multitude exerting all their strength and power against me alone. My mother and father are not here, nor my brother, nor any other relative. But I have these 10 perfections, like old retainers long cherished at my board. It therefore behoves me to make the 10 perfections my shield and my sword, and to strike a blow with them that shall destroy this strong array." And he remained sitting, and reflected on the 10 perfections. Thereupon the god Mara caused a whirlwind, thinking, "By this will I drive away Siddhartha." Straightway the east wind and all the other different winds began to blow. But although these winds could have torn their way through mountain peaks half a league, or 2 leagues, or 3 leagues high, or have uprooted forest shrubs and trees, or have reduced to powder and scattered in all directions villages and towns, yet when they reached the future Buddha, such was the energy of the great being's merit, they lost all power and were not able to cause so much as a fluttering of the edge of his priestly robe. Then he caused a great rainstorm, saying, "With water will I overwhelm and drown him." And through his mighty power, clouds of 100 strata, and clouds of 1,000 strata arose, and also the other different kinds, and these rained down, until the earth became gullied by the torrents of water which fell, and until the floods had risen over the tops of every forest tree. But on coming to the great being, This mighty inundation was not able to wet his priestly robes as much as a